Morning, everybody. Today is March 8, 2024. This is the first Friday call of the month of March. Um, uh, so today we propose to talk about three different topics. We want to catch up on Phenotype February 2024. We want to make a list of things that we need to do to get Phenotype February 2024 to a state of completion. And then we want to talk about the OKRs and what we need to do to make progress on those. And any of the collaborators who want to report out on their projects and what the community can do to help them achieve their goals. So those are the three ideas that I have. Anybody else? Any thoughts or anything that they want to add? Are there anybody who's new to the work group that would like to introduce themselves? And not you, Ride. I'm going to take you out. Okay. All right. So I just got a message back from Aza. Said she needs just 2 more minutes. So if it's okay with you all, let's do that as the second topic. Then let's just go to the OKRs. OKR slides are where? All right, so these are the OKRs that I spoke about at the OHDSI community call late last month. This was based on our discussions we had, I think, end of 2023. So let's talk about the OKRs. We did not ratify these OKRs as a group, so this is an opportunity to make any changes or improve them. Um, So we have three objectives. Objective number one is to enhance the science of phenotyping and best practices. And one of the key results that has been proposed is to publish a paper or a communication on the OHDSI Phenotype Library by Q2 2024. This is in an advanced stage. Juan, Banda, and I have made an advanced draft of it. We've not looked at it for the past 6 weeks, but we will. Was hoping to make progress on it on the month of March. And it's a public and collaborative work, so anybody is welcome to participate in any level they want. The second key result was to conduct a network study to support methods on incorporating measurement errors in the background incidence rate estimates by Q4 2024. And Jamie, you are the named lead on that.
Yes.
You want to
What is your target completion date for the Phenotype Library paper? And in particular, at what date do you want to have edits, revisions, et cetera, from collaborators on that paper?
Yeah, so as of January 15th, it was ready for feedback from collaborators. I just haven't asked for it in a declarative way. It is posted on the public OHDSI forums, and it's also in the Teams site. So
ASEP in that case.
So in that case, yes. So to like right now, anybody who's reaching out who knows about this and interested in it can just contribute. And at one point, I'll make an announcement asking anybody else, and then we lock it.
Okay.
Just sent a message saying, "Can you give me the link to the meeting?" So I go.
I'm here.
Okay.
It's just that Teams took a very long time to wake up.
Got it. So Aza, we have three topics that we want to talk about. The first topic was Phenotype February. Because you were running a little late, I moved to the second topic, which is to ratifying our OKRs. So we talked about the first objective. The second objective is community engagement and educational outreach. This is essentially Phenotype February 2024. So we wanted to complete Phenotype February 2024 through a collaborative set of activities on the theme of heterogeneity in phenotype algorithms in published literature by Q1 2024. So that we'll talk about this next. We wanted to conduct 3 Atlas demos training in an open and make it open to the community. I am sharing. Can you guys see my screen? Yes.
Or
Yes.
it must be.
Yes.
Okay.
And the third one, the third OKR as part of community engagement and educational outreach is to create a new submission flow to the OHDSI Phenotype library and to elicit contributions. Right now, the submission flow is very rigid and difficult, and we just need to improve on it. So that's an objective. That's a key result for Q3 2024. The third set of goals is the maintenance and development of tools. So we complete 3 refreshments of the Phenotype library by Q4 2024, create a submission tool for the contributions to the OHDSI Phenotype library by Q2 2024, and develop an objective failure criteria for core definitions for Q4 2024. This is this key result, develop an objective failure criteria is scientific work that we hope to make progress this year. Any questions or comment about our key results? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so we could consider this ratified and thus move my progress on these OKRs for 2024. So the next topic that we want to talk about is Phenotype February 2024. What is next? What do we as a community need to do to get Phenotype February to a state that we can declare as complete and successful? And what would be the final output? Azza, do you have any thoughts you want to share? Okay, I think Azza is probably still setting up.
Yeah, she disconnected and came back so that she can view the screen.
Oh, okay. I saw Anna on the call.
Yeah, I think things that we need to get done, there are several things. So first, we need to publish our main findings from each of the, for each of the conditions, right? So that's just forum posts where we summarize everything and we open it up to the public to be added. And then the second big piece is drafting the manuscript, which we intend to submit to AMIA. So, you know, we're in the short or the tight time frame because it's got to happen within the next week, pretty much. So we're drafting the draft, and we're going to open it to the comments and to work with all of the potential authors who participated in the Phenotype Phebruary. I think these are the 2 things.
Yeah. And I got them. The draft that we are working on is currently in the folder, in the working group folder. So anybody can access it and start putting, give feedback. We still work. I mean, it's still work under progress. But it is in the folder under Phenotype February 2024 publication. And you'll see a draft that we started putting together. We're gonna put a forum post like for the whole community, not just our working group, because there are members who participated but not necessarily aware of the folders and all of that. So we will put a official forum post for anyone who wants to collaborate to join and link them to the draft. But we're thinking to do that on later Monday, because Anna and I and Jamie, we have not yet put the results, basically object. We haven't yet summarized. You know, we have all the shinies, but we need to put for the paper 3 figures maybe that summarize the variation by incidence rate. The variation of incidence rates by these phenotypes, the degree of overlap between those phenotypes, and the sensitivities, PPV values from p-evaluator. That's what we think going to be our figures for the results. So we feel that it's we need to have those in the draft for people to be able to react, to add to the discussion, to add to that part. What we worked on carefully is the intro and the method section.
So you have already completed the intro and the method section.
Correct. And actually, if somebody would like to, we do need like in the intro section, there is a paragraph that is currently missing, which required a little bit of, not literature review, but a little bit of looking into the prior papers that discuss that problem and see what they have found. And if you if you open the draft, maybe we can leave this for later, but I don't know. If you want to open the draft there, there's actually two statements that if somebody from the work group can help us in this, meaningfully contribute to the draft. So so what we're aiming for is not an abstract for AMIA. This is a short paper for AMIA. So if it's selected, it gets 15 minutes kind of presentation, and it's published as a paper, short paper that can be up to 5 to 10 pages. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so if you see on the top, if you see in the intro, if you go down a little bit, you'll see two highlighted sections. Here we go. So we need a paragraph that summarizes what we already know about discrepancy in definitions. And that's more like, there are some papers out there that just talks about the phenotype problem and how much there's variation in definitions across literature. So what we know about this already. And then also what we know about like the standards, what are the standards for reporting phenotypes. And that one, OHDSI community actually have published few on those. So we just want to summarize and reference those papers. We have a George paper, and then we have the reproducibility paper that talks about like what are the attributes you need to report when you talk about phenotypes to enable reproducibility and full description of the actual work and transparency. So we need to just like summarize and reference those papers, basically.
So this has been, I can't access the chat for some reason. I'm also having trouble accessing the Teams environment. I'm happy to help in any way I can. So if you want to, maybe you could chat via email or something to help me with my access issues, I'm happy to help do some of the methodological research or the other correlation work.
Oh, perfect. So
Ben, I'm going to send you an email right now.
Perfect, thank you.
And then maybe Gautam, you just put on the draft like for Ben to complete, maybe then for those sections.
Yeah.
That would be great. And the deadline is March 18th. So we have 10 days to wrap this up.
I'll get right on it.
Okay. All right. Anything from a result set or any that you all need help setting the Shiny up, extracting the results, setting up the infrastructure?
I think for the paper, for this short paper, I think what we have, the link for the 3 Shiny is going to be available in the draft, in the paper. I think that is sufficient. I don't know, Jamie, if you have any idea, if you wanna,
I don't think in this first paper we should venture into this like impact of measurement errors on the incidence rate. I think that's a separate paper altogether. And I'm slowly starting to come to terms with the idea that using a single point estimate for the measurement errors is inadequate. Like, it's what we've got, but what we really need to do is use the Phevaluator generated point estimate as the center of a plausible distribution of errors and incorporate that into the correction. And not doing that is just open to the criticism of, well, it could be wrong. You've got this new method that that's not socialized really in the broader community yet, and using one error is not gonna do it. So basically there's some more work for me to do before doing the impact of errors on the estimates, because I need to basically integrate a plausible prior distribution of the errors into what the incidence rates are. And that's like, you know, that's work. That will take some time. I am motivated to do it, but that's not like next week for AMIA, even remotely close.
So just to be clear, what Jamie is talking about is, so when we've set our objectives, we're looking at the variation of the phenotypes in terms of what are the phenotypes themselves, how they affect the incidence rate of the event in the source, in data sources, how much overlap between people that they capture. And then the fourth one, which Jamie is talking about, is if you to correct on the measurement error that these phenotypes produce, how much variation will still continue in those incidence rates.
Yeah, that was on Gautham's first OKR slide when you were fixing your computer.
Yeah. So that particular measure is a methodological work that Jamie is working on, and if we take the measurement error estimated by Phevaluator as the point measurement error that we get, we already know how correcting for that will change those variations in incidence rate. But what Jamie is saying is we can't do that assuming that that one estimate we get from Phevaluator is a true estimate and work on it. His methodological review yield that no matter what you do, you have to assume a distribution of the measurement error and then try to look at how much variation exists in the incidence rate after correcting for that distribution.
Yeah, the short way to put it is there is uncertainty in the phenotype errors, no matter how you estimate them, whether it's with gold standard, with like a human in a room doing chart validation, or using a predictive model like Phevaluator, or using an enhanced keeper LLM type thing. There's always going to be uncertainty in it. So that uncertainty needs to be incorporated in the correction. And if you don't, you have a basically empirically unverifiable problem that could amount to garbage in and garbage out. Because if you use errors that are wrong, your correction will be just as wrong, possibly more.
So that piece will continue in his research and will continue. Yeah, that.
And Phenotype Phebruary has produced a shockingly huge amount of data from which to do these types of analyses. So we're going to see how that measurement error impacts a great number of definitions over these 4 different conditions. So that's like from a research perspective into incidence rate correction. This is very good. This is gold. Don't expect it tomorrow.
So we have data now to to work with analyses that can answer that question, which is part of the OKR, which is how to correct for measurement error. But for Phenotype Phebruary created that data that Jamie can conduct his research methods using empirical evaluation, because we created all these phenotypes, they exist, they're real phenotypes, and now he has data to do analyses looking how best to control for measurement error. So that's great from Phenotype Phebruary for our objective of correcting for measurement error, if that makes sense to everybody. For AMIA paper, it's specific to just understand the variation in terms of incidence rates, overlap between patients, and the estimated measurement error using Phevaluator. And in that case, Phevaluator is not saying, we're not using it as a estimate of a true measurement error, but you can use it, if you use one method, this is how much variation you're gonna get relative to each other for the same exact idea, just using different phenotypes. So that is legit. But Gautam, to go back to your question, do we need any help for the paper in terms of infrastructures? Jamie, my question was to you, do you think there's a value of combining those Chinese into one shiny to support the paper, or leaving things as is right now is sufficient?
No, I think leaving them as distinct and separate, like URLs, is appropriate, because putting them all together will have people pressing buttons that they don't understand what they do and comparing PAH characteristics to Alzheimer's characteristics and all sorts of incorrect stuff. So I think they should be separate URLs. Someone might even make the argument that these should be, 3 separate papers, but I'll leave that to someone else to decide for the moment. Like, it might be the case that we write this one short paper for the AMIA definition. They're like, there's no way that our 5 pages can actually cover the conceptual intent of what we've done. The amount of the variation, the number of different definitions and why these choices were made, the results from all of them in 7 databases, maybe more, and the interpretation in 5 pages seems crazy. Like, someone might read it and be like, there's, you've reported this at such low granularity in order to make it fit that we're seeing a forest, but not enough trees.
Is there
Yeah,
anybody?
I want to actually second that, because I think this paper really should be focused on the framework issue, and then the specifics probably are going to have to be spin-offs, because there's just so much. I mean, my experience only with the MDD. I mean, there's so much there to unpack, and you can't do that in a general overview 5-pager if you want to do that.
Yeah, is there anybody on the call, and we're gonna also ask that on the forum just to make sure that people who couldn't attend the meeting still have. Is there anybody interested in leading a paper that would be focused, like, it's more of a not clinical paper, it's informatics paper, but it's focused on the phenotype clinically, so like depression, summarize what are those phenotypes used, how much they're different, but also talk more about evaluation and how best to capture MDD versus because our overarching paper is not going to talk about it's not going to go into how to capture MDD. We are agnostic of that. We're just using MDD as an example to show how much variation exists. But what we produce can totally lead to a succinct publication about MDD phenotype. What exists? What are the major problems in these phenotypes across all of them for MDD, and what seems to work better? Something like more on the phenotype of MDD, because MDD particularly and Alzheimer actually we didn't find a paper that just talks about algorithms and how they perform and how different. PAH, there were 2 papers on that, so one can say that it's already done. But MDD and Alzheimer, we found a lot of clinical papers, but there's no paper that actually say, look, if you want to work on MDD, you really need to differentiate between any depression and MDD, and this is what MDD is, and that's, focus more on the phenotyping.
I will stand up for the lead on the MDD paper, because there is so much of that information that is unpublished in the measurement field. That would be, I think, really useful to inform these conversations. We're struggling with all of the MDD definitions, and we call them, measure definitions, but they're really phenotypes, from various data types and sources and lineages and all that. So I'll put my hand up for that one.
Perfect. You have been perfect, Ben. I put your name on the list, and in the recap, we'll just make sure there's an task list.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I have no data. I like actual data, so I can't do that. I need to only contribute on the methods and the technical policy side of things. But like I said, I'm well aware of all the
Yeah, so the data all exists, all what we produce is in those shinies. So we're putting it in the public. So it's yeah.
As long as you're aware of what I have and what I can do.
Yeah. Anybody interested in?
Do you want to set a timeline for yourself, Ben, as you lead this? It's an arbitrary date that you just pick and tell us.
I probably should. I'll get back to you on that.
Any interest in Alzheimer? Okay, we will put a post about it. and we'll see if somebody okay. Yeah, I think that's from us for February. Did you guys discuss when I missed the beginning of the call? Any reactions, reflections from people on the call about how they felt about Phenotype February? How did they compare it? How did they feel comparison to the last 2 years? Any recommendations for next year? Silent.
Should we do it again next year? Okay. All right. Thank you, Aza. So let's go.
I'm sorry, can I just make one quick comment?
Yes.
I think the pivot that you took this year and to do something very different, I thought that was outstanding. You know, in the past years, it was, you know, the first couple of years, it was just creating phenotypes. But I thought what you did this year was very good. And, you know, I'm looking forward to what you guys come up with for next year as an idea, because I thought this was exceptional. It was just really, really nice.
Thank you, Joel. I actually have a specific question for people who did literature review. I know AMIA is on the call. How, because when I did some of the Alzheimer, and to me, there were some eye-opening into like how the practice is in observational research. Like I was like, oh, this is all what you need to write in a paper. Like any aha moments just looking at papers, anything you learned out of the papers you were looking at?
Thanks, Az. I think it was really when I look at the literature and defining the phenotype, I see pattern that there is no clear way of the studies to define different diseases. So this is really make me ask myself how accurate these studies are. So I think it was really good. I guess selecting these different conditions were very good. We might in the next year or even during the this year to look for other diseases that we thought they are. There is still concern about how they define these diseases or these conditions, and also the use of different coding system like ICD-9, ICD-9-CM, the WHO. It's really interesting how these different countries, they are using different coding and might not be the same among. I mean, when you with respect to the result of these studies. So it was really interesting. Thanks.
Tamir, it's based on what you just said. Do you think we have at least an early design of a reproducible framework to do this for other diseases?
I think I think we might do, but again, it will really depend on the different diseases. So the frame that we have, it's really nice, but when you apply it in different condition, you have to be careful, like which like criteria you are using for that condition.
What surprised me the most when I was looking at the papers, similar to Tamir's point about the code selection and the like different how the existence of different vocabulary, how that affects that selection. You guys cannot imagine how many papers, and that's just the sample that I looked at, when they reported both ICD-10 and ICD-9 in the paper, how much inconsistency were in those selections. It's the same exact paper. When they say we're doing depression, in the ICD-9, they would pick something like major depression unspecified, but in the ICD-10, there would be the same exact semantics with maybe a little variation, maybe not else classified or something like that. They don't use that code, but they used it in the ICD-9, and it just gave me on how much, like, I really don't know. Forget about phenotyping, just code selection. I have like really how researchers and investigators could select codes is really unknown, because in the same exact paper, you would think that, well, clinically, they think this idea is in scope. So they selected that code. But then when they report the same ideas in a different vocabulary, that list is different for the same exact paper. And I'm like, did they just like maybe give it, like, I wondered how much clinicians actually are part of that process. Back in the days, papers would say, like, we selected the codes based on a panel of experts that, like, now most of the papers actually don't say that. Instead, they reference some other paper that had a code list. And then you go try to see what that paper had and how they selected this code. Number one, you'll see that that code list is actually different than the one in their paper. So clearly referencing some other paper was just like, okay, that paper looks good, I'll reference it. And then it's so strange how inconsistent the ideas that the ideas represented by these codes, how inconsistent they are for the same exact paper. And that just made me think how much clinicians are actually part of this process.
Yeah, if you allow me, Gautam. Actually, I guess one of the reason is that most of the journals are clinical journals. So they are not really, when your readers are clinicians, they may not be an expert, or they are like they know a lot of methodology. So I have just suggestion. I know you know better than me with that, but I see that the manuscript you're thinking to send it to the AMIA, but don't you think like such manuscript go to a clinical journal so they like open up their eyes, so the guys, listen, there is a concern of they might have concern of the definition, so you have to be careful, etc., etc.
That's a very good point.
That's a very good point. Because we focus so much on informatics, are aware of this topic and have now objective evidence of that topic. But it may not be new news to people in the informatics field. We know that it exists, but the people in the clinical field who read clinical journals, who rely on evidence that is generated from observational data, may not know about it. And bringing them to their attention, especially in a clinical topic that is core to their field, would be of interest, I think. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, going on what Azza was saying about differences in ICD-9, ICD-10 codes and things included in one and not in the other. I wonder whether it's a question of limitations in ICD-9 that get carried over into ICD-10, and that in the idea of making a general phenotype that incorporates this whole period of time, let's say from 2000 to 2023, that at some point you might think that's like, maybe this phenotype should not be used for this period of time. Maybe you really have to say, after ICD-10 came into vogue, things just really changed, and it's really inappropriate to use this phenotype or these concepts prior to. ICD-9 was just too general. I know for pulmonary arterial hypertension, that's the case. I mean, we don't look at it prior to the addition of the new codes in like 2017. because it's just very different. It's just poorly coded.
So basically, you're saying if there is a big change in the granularity of the code, especially when new clinical ideas are introduced by the current vocabulary that were not present in the previous vocabulary, we should not be studying from the period where the previous vocabulary was used.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Well,
you
it's not that they don't exist.
I'm sorry.
It's they may not map. It's not that they don't exist. That they may not map directly from one to the other, even in a new iteration, right? From ICD-9 to ICD-10 to SNOMED or whatever you're trying to do. It's not easy to sort of draw a direct link between those in the terminology level.
Yeah.
Which I think make a great point to why somebody might, before, as part of evaluating, if as part of your quality control of a research, is like you decide on your code list, and then you do what we do in our diagnostics, which looking at the incidence or looking at the occurrence of the events captured by those codes across the years of the study of your calendar time, to make sure that that flip in vocabulary didn't change what you capture. Like, you, in theory, Joel, you can say that, and you can say, well, it's case by case. I'm going to look at pulmonary hypertension. Well, we know that there's a change in ICD-10, then we shouldn't do it. Another way of empirically evaluate that for everything, not for only for the things that you already have that prior knowledge, is, okay, decide on your code list for the ICD-10 and 9, and before saying that looks good, do that exercise, which is looking at the consistency of those of the people captured in the data source across those years, and see if, like, there's clear abnormality suggesting that, you know, the codes changed, and then now you would have, instead of having expect the event to happen 1 in a 200, you're saying it, I don't know, 10 in 200. There's clearly something that those codes made, like, change how you're capturing people. So you can empirically evaluate that, and that's something that we do when we phenotype. But looking at those papers that told me that people come up with a code list and they decide of certain mapping between if there is ICD-10 and 9 in their data source, to Ben's point, and then they run with it. They just assume that it's going to work.
Yeah, there's a number of clutter variables like that, though, as a too, in terms of, I mean, I can only speak for depression for the most part. It's not just about when, the shift from one to the other occurred, but it's also other things. I mean, I know in the depression space, the release of a number of different strategic objectives for documentation of depression through the quality programs, through ONC, through CMS, et cetera, had a massive impact on how the data was actually recorded and what terminologies were used to do so. So, yeah, like, you have to, and I agree. I don't remember who the first person who said before, like, the clinicians are not aware of any of that. Their systems are doing that in the back end, and they're just not necessarily aware of those differences. So it'd be really good to highlight that those as variables that need to be considered when you're really developing a phenotype that you want to be highly reliable. You do have to put some contextual temporal parameters around it, because code system shifts and billing and all these other factors have played a major role in how this stuff gets documented and gets stored.
Chris, do you have any idea of how much? I don't know how much. I know you guys started the exercise with phenotyping, but from where you sit in terms from the clinical context, do you know how much clinicians actually are involved in like when there's clinical research in your organization? How much clinicians get involved in the details of like defining outcomes of the study or study population of the study, and how much do you guys rely on codes and the semantics of those codes versus like some other variables that you're completely unaware of?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I was thinking about it during this discussion. I think it's pretty variable, depending on which institution, which department is conducting the research. I really, the comments that Famir and Ben really resonated with me, though. I think a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and for clinicians that are largely doing this work in a silo, and in my perspective, at least from my vantage point, is these things are still very siloed, like clinical medicine and like the biomedical informatics community. Like there's not as much crosstalk as there probably should be. And I see a great opportunity to connect these silos and tear them down, or whatever metaphor you want to use, and actually have better collaborative research across these two disciplines. So I think obviously both fields have a lot to offer, and to learn from one another would most certainly yield a better product. So I don't know if that answers your question, Aza, but
it does, because like where I sit at, whenever we have issue with code, like how do you define or which code you use, it's always almost if you just want something to say that it's good, you'll say like, oh, I have like clinicians review this and they said that's the way, and it's like almost given that hierarchy. But at the same time, to your point, clinicians are not aware of like of other things that might focus that might change what that code might mean for another clinician, and how to use it. And it's always considered, well, when a clinician reads this word, it means this thing to them, and that is the truth. But it's interesting because like bioinformaticians think that if a clinician say that's the right code, then that's the right code. That's the truth. And then, but to your point, it's actually the knowledge of both that probably going to get your best shot on defining diseases in our health records.
Okay. We got less than 15 minutes. I wanted to see if Christopher, you wanted to give an update on the progress you've made. I know you've sent an email about your progress. We also have a subgroup that is working together on the effort. So would you like to take some time talking about it?
Sure. Thank you. So for those who may not know me, I'm a clinician. I'm the clinician I just spoke about. Little knowledge, dangerous thing. From Johns Hopkins, and we most recently got onboarded, so to speak. We're officially live, working with a lot of the OHDSI open source tools like Phebruary, Cohort Diagnostics. Thank you, Joel, Gotham, and Asa for kind of holding our hands through that process. So now we're actually trying to conduct research, and we're focused in autoimmune diseases, which, by themselves are very rare, but in aggregate are quite common in the population, and a great, I think, use case for the OHDSI community. I mean, we have 1 billion people. These rare diseases can all of a sudden seem like we actually have sample sizes to actually learn. So we're taking one specific autoimmune disease, this thing called myositis, and we are developing a series of phenotypes, or we have developed a series of phenotypes to evaluate. So we've run that on our home CDM at Hopkins, and we're appealing to the larger group at J&J and beyond to run them on their respective CDMs, so we can get a look at how these phenotypes look, and then run Phebruary and understand their test characteristics. The goal of this is kind of to my comment before, to really merge the expertise for the biomedical informatics community as well as the clinician side, and then publish this more in a clinical journal, to bring expertise in both disciplines, but also really to highlight OHDSI, OMOP, Phebruary, these things that, at least in the circles I run in, are unknown. So if we can kind of raise their awareness in the autoimmune disease space, and get a little bit more embracing from the clinical side, I think that would be a great success.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Anybody in the community want have any questions for us? Okay. Joel, Aza, anything that you want to comment about on the next steps for this?
You mean for Chris?
Mm-hmm.
What Chris is working? Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the process of doing the evaluator for it. Just wrapping it up.
And you guys landed on a definition for so now the focus. I know you, Chris, you said rare diseases, but we are. Do you think there will be more conditions, or are we gonna stick to what we have right now?
I think we'd start by just doing this single disease as kind of a proof of concept for the rheumatologic field. And then the idea would be you could expand this across, dozens of different rheumatic and autoimmune diseases and show the benefit. Because the current world of rheumatology, at least, is, people generate these algorithms, they run them in a single data source, they report that out, and then people start using them for other data sources, and it's just a very messy, sloppy way of doing things. So I think if we could bring a little more rigor, that would be wonderful, through the methods and the approaches that we've outlined.
Actually, very interesting, because you're coming from your data source, you're coming from a specialized center, right? And almost a registry for the disease. And now we're looking how you can leverage that knowledge, because you guys actually look at records and have some confidence in definitions, how that look like when you look at a claims data source that have all sorts of people. So that on its own with logic is very interesting.
Yeah, we're excited to see what it looks like.
All right, we've gone through our agenda. I'm happy to close the call 8 minutes early, or if anybody wants to talk more, we can stay on the call. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending this work group call. We'll meet again in about 2 weeks, and meanwhile, you'll see some posts on the OHDSI forum. I'll try to summarize this. I'm using the output of the recording and my crude notes along with ChatGPT to synthesize it into a long forum post, and it's been working out pretty well. So you'll see that on the OHDSI community forum post. All right, thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Folks.
Thanks, guys.